Good morning, everyone. It's pretty early here, but I would like to share the weekly energy with you today. This is going to be the week of Venus. Venus is the most active planet. It's going to be making communication with every single planet. So I'm going to be sharing the screen so that you can see what is happening. Hopefully, I can share the screen. Yes, I think you are able to see the screen. Yes, so welcome everyone. I hope this video will help you. As usual, I will be breaking this down for all 12 signs, but in separate video. So please tune in. I'm going to start sharing the 12 signs in the afternoon. And today, or at the moment, we are just going to be looking at what exactly happens in the sky. So on the 15th of June, we have got Venus activations. Venus is going to be making a beautiful sextile to Uranus. On the 16th of June, it's going to be running into Neptune with a trine. And then on the 17th, 18th, it's going to be making an opposition to Pluto. So this is why the celestial focus is all on Venus this week. Within about the 72-hour window, Venus is actually being a little bit squeezed by all outer planets. Now, we are starting with a bit of a spark with Uranus, and then we are creating a vision out of it. And then we are hitting a bit of a wall, a harsh reality. The truth is about to be coming out with Pluto. But let's break that down. So Venus is making a sextile on the 15th of June to Uranus. Now, this is about sudden sparks. This is about social updates, as well as kind of like a bit of a refreshing detour. This opens the week with kind of like a bit of jolt of electric, spontaneous type of energy. Because actually it happens together with the new moon, alongside in the sign of Gemini on the same day. This is all about fresh starts. So we are thinking about what type of business we can pull up, for example, or we can get a sudden invitations to a social event. We might be having a block party, for example. The neighbors are inviting us for a bit of a celebration. Venus in the sign of Leo is all about the finer things in life, enjoying life to the fullest, but also we can gain a lot of sudden insights as well. In social situations or in certain type of creative projects, we can have unconventional approaches to it. Venus in the sign of Leo is all about, like I said, celebration, social situations, creativity as well. And Uranus is kind of like the out of the box type of energy level. So we can have out of the box ideas about how to generate income. Venus represents money in our chart. Also, this could be very good time to break out of a relationship, for example, without any type of huge damage. Or it's an ideal day to break a routine and try something completely different. If you have got issues, for example, around a creative project, then all of a sudden we can get hit by the genius energy and then we can come up with a solution, something that we haven't tried before yet. Now, then Venus is making that beautiful trine to Neptune. Now, that's a little bit of a fantasy type of aspect. It's very easy to fall for something that is kind of like wrapped up in a beautiful wrapping paper. So this is a softening type of energy. That electric spark that we had on Monday kind of like starts to dissolve into this highly creative, kind of like cinematic, a compassionate current to it. So, for example, if something chaotic happened with Uranus, with Neptune, we tend to be forgiving. We tend to be kind of like sweeping things under the carpet. There is an idealistic tone to it, but it's a brilliant aspect for sensitive conversations, for example. It could be brilliant for art. You might decide that I want to be writing music, listening to music. It's also an interpersonal connection with others. Now, it could be about visualization. I like that, especially with creative visualization, where my life is leading me. But it can also create a bit of a drama. Venus in the sign of Leo is often very dramatic, tends to be taking things to the next level. And there is a bit of a caution, even though with a trine as well. There could be a tendency to see others through kind of like a rose-colored glasses, overly idealized lens. And of course, this could be a trap because we can get disappointed at the end. And the disappointment could be coming from the Venus and Pluto opposition that is also going to be taking place on the 17th of June. That is exactly when that, let's call it as a psychological peak of that sequence. So the spotlight shifts directly into that control issue, for example, unspoken balances around intimacy, fun, celebration. It's kind of like you are starting a party. You have got that spark to organize a block party. And then we create the vision with it. And then when it comes to the execution, unfortunately, we might see that two drunken people, for example, are going to be having a fight. So this is a confrontation between that expressive desire of Venus in the sign of Leo, and then the certain type of a structural detachment of that Aquarius, which is forcing to recognize certain type of hidden patterns and to bring them to the surface. Rather than avoiding the tension, this alignment actually offers kind of like a opportunity to confront reality, establishing clear boundaries, and even to reclaim your personal power as well. Remember, an opposition is always about imbalances, meaning that something that is out of balance has to be restored. And Pluto is about to show you what is out of sync currently in your life when it comes to the themes of money, love, fun, celebration. You can even have that spark that I would like to go on a holiday. So let me show you on the screen. So you can see that Venus is making a sextile on 2 degree on to Uranus on the 15th of June. Now, that's actually quite special because you can see that Uranus at the same time is squaring the nodes, meaning that Venus is in quincunx to the nodes. Then we are moving forward a day, and then Venus is about to be making a trine to Neptune. And then if we are moving just a couple of days forward, one day forward, then you can see that Venus is going to be opposing Pluto. Now, this is truly special, this opposition, because you can see that the moon joins that opposition as well on the 17th. So it has got an emotional undertone to it. It's going to be that opposition, that reality that we have to start seeing is leaving us a little bit baffled. Of course, when it comes to Venus and Moon conjunction, it's often about wanting to be celebrated like a queen. But Pluto in Aquarius can be very detached, and then it's kind of like you go to a restaurant and then you go on a date and you expect the guy to pull out the chair, for example, and this guy forgets to do that. So how I'm going to be reacting to it? The moon is our reaction to an unfamiliar situation. So because there is this confrontation when it comes to our money, love life, the moon is reacting to it quite in a dramatic way. So, however, this is a little bit about the dust is settling from that Venus sequence as the sun also prepares to change sign as well at the end of the week. So, I would call it as an integration period where you're going to have to be able to think through your love life, your financial situation, and how much you are able to celebrate every single milestone in your life. So you can be really using Monday, for example, to do a lot of brainstorming around sitting down and kind of like seeing the patterns in your relationship or in what ways I want to be generating income for myself. But expect underlying tensions or power struggles or even fears coming to the surface around Wednesday time. Uh, um, Leo represents our confidence. So this could be showing you that you have got brilliant ideas, you are very good at building a vision, but unfortunately, when it comes to your confidence level, that is always holding you back. So evaluate your self-worth, basically. Notice where the desire for validation conflicts with the need for true personal autonomy. So that's one of the Venus energy there. It feels like it comes with three stages. So the stages are, we have got that flash happening with Venus and Uranus. You are sitting at your desk and then you are being hit with a genius idea, an out of the box idea hits out of nowhere. It feels innovative, it feels electric, it feels super fresh as well. And then let's say with Gemini, you are going to be writing down that concept immediately, and you feel like that's going to be a game changer in your life. Now, stage two is Neptune, where we are creating a fantasy there. So you're kind of like starting to build a castle in the sky. But is this castle built on a proper foundation? That's going to be one of the questions there. You start visualizing a massive success, for example. You romanticize how easy it is going to be. You are falling in love with that idea that you came up with. And then you might be disregarding the warning signs. And that's where the reckoning happens with Pluto and Venus opposition, because it hits the idea, hits a wall of reality. You look at your actual budget, for example, and you thought that it was going to be cheaper than it is actually. And you have to be reevaluating things. You start seeing some structural flaws, something that you ignored, for example, during that Neptunian high. Imagine Neptune as the planet of intoxication, the planet of glamour. That's why we are falling in love with something, and then it's kind of like being drunk on love, being drunken on love. So imagine that with Venus and Uranus, you are going to be meeting someone very cute. You are meeting someone out of the blue. Maybe it's going to be through your neighbor or your sibling or even certain type of social gathering. But Uranus represents something that is kind of like unusual circumstances. And then you might be having a very uplifting conversation, and then you feel like that the spark is there. So with Neptune, we start falling in love. We are falling in love on that thrilling kind of like meaning, and you might even break the rules. And this is where Pluto comes into the picture. A few days after, you're going to figure out the truth about this person. And maybe you figure out that they are married, or you are going to figure out that they have got kids, or I don't know, they have got certain type of obsessions in life. And that's the Plutonian phase. So you can think of it as the end of the honeymoon period. A piece of hidden information could come to light, and then it somehow erupts that vision that you had before. So Venus went into the sign of Leo recently, which I spoke about last week's forecast. But I want to, talk a little bit more in depth about Venus in the sign of Leo, because this is the main figure of the week. Venus in Leo is about celebration. Venus in Leo demands a stage, it demands validation, it demands an audience, and then everyone has to be giving me a clap. Venus in Leo is very playful, it wants to be visible, it wants to be admired that I'm beautiful, I've got a nice dress on, I have created something extremely magnificent. So it's kind of like Venus, who in the sign of Leo, who wants to be going to the airport, for example, and then demanding to be able to sit in the VIP lounge. It wants to be walking on the red carpet. It wants to be having a glass of champagne. It wants to attend lavish parties and so on. Although it could also indicate that someone who is extremely generous, for example, extremely generous with their loved ones, with their kids, and then they would do anything for them. Often Venus in Leo does things for attention, but also it could be because their heart is made out of pure gold. So imagine that you are hosting a party. Venus in Leo would be buying all the alcohol, all the nice food with caviar and all those type of things. But then Pluto make us realize that these people didn't even bring a bottle of champagne or a bottle of wine, and how ungrateful they are. So that's where Pluto comes into the picture, who is causing a bit of an emotional turmoil here. The pitfall of Venus in the sign of Leo is that often we are performing happiness, but we are not truly happy at the same time. So, performing happiness and feeling happiness are two different things, right? So, there could be, of course, that underlying need for applause and validation, where an event only feels kind of like successful, for example, if something looks stunning on camera. So that's why Venus in Leo is often very good for modeling, or it's very good for social media creators as well. Venus in Leo is about luxury. It's about having to learn as well that you are meant to be treating yourself for something high end. It's about deservingness. And it feels like with this aspect configuration, you need to understand that you deserve love. You deserve to have a secure financial life. But how am I going to be achieving that? That would be the question. And this is where I think Pluto's role is extremely important, who is showing you that there are some underlying fears there that you haven't dealt with. Also, the downfall of Venus in the sign of Leo could be an urge to spend money that you don't even have. Or I want to be buying something that is not a necessity, but is visually super appealing. So you might want to be kind of like sitting down a little bit and then think about, do I need this today? What am I going to use it for? Is it useful? There's also Venus in Leo loves gifts. It wants to give gifts and it wants to receive gifts as well. So you, for example, there is an anniversary happening and then you might be ending up buying some premium seats, for example, at a theater or at a concert, because you want to give the experience to that person you admire. Also, this could be fashion related, jewelry related, premium beauty and grooming related things as well. So we just need to be careful a little bit with financial trap, because a severe case of champagne tasting can kind of like be a problem if we are on a beer budget, right? So that's the story of Venus. What's also striking is that Chiron is moving into the sign of Taurus this week. Now, that's going to be happening on the 19th of June. I'm not going to talk about Chiron much. And the reason being is because I made a live video about Chiron yesterday, and that's 3 hours long. I gave at least a good 8 to 10 minutes description to each rising sign and 1 hour completely on Chiron in the sign of Taurus. So let me not do that again. However, Chiron is being disposed by Venus. So that journey, whatever Venus has gone through with Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, it just tells me that those are going to be some of the Chiron lessons from June 19th until about September 17th onwards. I know Venus is going to be moving into the sign of Virgo at one point, but the entry chart of a planet is always kind of like a birth of a new chart. So because Chiron will be spending about 3 months in the sign of Taurus, imagine that Venus is going to be in the sign of Leo, still opposing Pluto. And of course, it's going to be opposing Juno as well, which we are going to be talking about next week. So Chiron in Taurus is a multi-year type of journey here, which is often about our self-worth and about our financial wounds, and then kind of like that poverty mindset. And Venus in the sign of Leo is really about what can I afford? Like I said, that would be about buying a bottle of champagne on a beer budget. Of course, Chiron is also about healing, and Pluto is a healing planet as well. So it really feels like that Venus-Pluto opposition is going to be exposing us uncomfortable truth about what we are meant to be healing. in our life, certain type of financial choices, relationship choices, or the lack of creativity or the creativity that we need to be going for. So Venus in Leo mandates with Chiron that the healing path requires radical self-respect and a lot of confidence in yourself. So that's just something additional that I would have liked to give you. Now on the 20th, oh, I've done something here. Sorry about that. I'm hoping I'm not doing anything wrong. Okay, so we are moving on to the 20th of June, and I want to show you something. Eurydice will be entering the sign of Virgo. So Eurydice, his astrological number is 75. And then I just want to show you how long Eurydice is going to be in the sign of Virgo. Eurydice goes about 1.5 degrees every single year. So it tends to be spending approximately around 3-4 months in each signs, unless it goes retrograde, of course, in a sign, which, by the way, is not going to be happening this time around. So Eurydice will be staying actually in the sign of Virgo up to September 30th. September 29th, September 30th, depending on your location. So its astrological number is 75. Let me tell you a story about Eurydice. Eurydice was the wife of Orpheus. And she was bitten by a snake and she died. And Orpheus wanted to rescue her. And she kind of convinced Pluto, or Hades, the god of the underworld, with his beautiful music to release her beloved wife. Pluto agreed to it, but he had one condition. And the condition was that no matter what happens on the road, on the way out of the underworld, they should never look back until they reach the surface. So they were walking out of the underworld, and at the very last minute before they reached the surface, Orpheus got a little bit anxious because he could not hear his wife anymore behind him. So he looked back, and Eurydice was there, but disappeared immediately. So what is the warning of Eurydice? Eurydice represents the trap of looking back, second-guessing something. It represents looking for hidden flaws, not being able to trust the process. So it feels like, because Eurydice moves into the sign of Virgo, that those Venusian tests, something that we tend to be regretting in our lives, and then we keep looking back to the past. Now, Eurydice in the sign of Virgo is a little bit about the hidden flows of life, right? Virgo is about criticism. It's about wanting everything to be perfect. And then we keep revisiting something. We keep going back to something because we want to make sure that something that we have created is completely flawless. So imagine Eurydice being as a psychological threshold where we risk losing what we love because we cannot stop looking back. We want to go back to something to verify it all the time. So what really happens is that we are allowing anxiety, suspicion, self-doubt, destroy the moment, destroying the recovery process, because Virgo is a healing sign. So it's kind of like you go to the hospital and then you are instructed to stay at home for 2 weeks, but you return to work after a few days because you think that you are all good to go. You know, Virgo loves to fix, categorize, diagnose the problems. So when Eurydice enters this sign, the urge to look back is driven by a need to analyze something that might have gone wrong, looking for the hidden errors. we are trying to dissect, for example, a relationship pattern, or we are trying to dissect a creative shift that occurred earlier in the week. And that feels like it is connected to somehow Venus and Pluto. Just like Orpheus at the mouth of the underworld, Eurydice in Virgo represents the danger of overthinking, or even hiding to a certain extent, because Virgo is the night expression of Mercury. So that's where the overthinking coming from. That's where certain type, like a sleepless night could be coming from, and so forth. So, and Eurydice therefore is also the representation of temptation. We can get very tempted to leave our workplace or to leave a certain bad habits behind. And the next day you can be crying about it. Virgo represents lifestyle choices, healthy lifestyle. So you might be having a slice of cake, for example, during your diet, and then you start beating yourself up for making such a mistake. It's kind of like going down on a guilt trip. And the reminder here is that what is the point of beating yourself up over a slice of cake? We've made a mistake, okay? We are going to be doing better next day. So don't second guess yourself. That's pretty much the message of Eurydice. Now, then, okay, I'm just going to be going back, and I'm wondering if I'm still sharing the screen or not. Am I sharing the screen, guys? Can anyone let me know? Because it feels like I'm not sharing it. Why did it stop? Was I not sharing it before? No, not sure what I've done, but I'm just gonna come back to it. So, and then the last aspect of the week is on the 21st of June, when the sun enters the sign of Cancer, so marking the summer solstice. So a summer solstice pretty much indicates a new season, the start of a new season. A solstice can impact us for a year, half a year, or 3 months, depending on the rising sign of the chart. Now, I'm not going to get into technical details right now, but if the solstice happens with a fixed rising sign, then the chart indicates a year-long energy pattern. If it's a cardinal sign, then it would be the representation of 3 months. And if it's a mutable sign, then it would represent 6 months, basically a bit of an astrological knowledge for you. So, of course, Sun moving into the sign of Leo is going to be highlighting our foundation as well as how well we feel in our skin. It is going to be representing the past. It's something to do with having to be able to overcome our past limitations. Why is that? Because as soon as the sun enters the sign of Cancer, it's going to be looking at Chiron with a sextile. So that is, a sextile is, imagine that as opening a door for a new invitation or opening a door for a new opportunity. It's kind of like an invitation to connect two elemental energies. So I've spoken about Chiron in length. I spoke about it yesterday for 3 hours, so you might want to be revisiting that video. But it's super striking to me that the sun moving into the sign of Cancer, marking the summer solstice, is going to be indicating a good 3-month period of healing opportunities. So what does the sun want from us? It is shining a light on our emotional needs. Whether I belong, whether I've got that internal sanctuary that I need. So we tend to be, or it looks like that we are going to be receiving an opportunity to heal those. Chiron's first response is, because it's at the very beginning or at the very gates of the very beginning of the sign of Taurus. So the sun is like a warming energy. So it starts warming up that wound within us, the wound of self-worth issue, the wound of poverty mindset, the wound of not having enough. appreciation or money or whatever it is. So it feels to me that the sun is providing a medicine to Chiron to be able to come to terms with the pain that we've got, and it offers an opportunity to get out of this kind of like messy situation. So it's all about security. Cancer and Taurus together are always about security. Cancer is more to do with emotional security, while Taurus is more to do with physical security. So with Taurus, we need a cozy bedroom, we need a blanket. With Cancer, we need someone who is going to provide the shoulders for us to be able to cry on. So, because Chiron is disposed by Venus, like I spoke about that at the beginning of the video, how chaotic the journey of Venus is right now, it feels like that we are realizing that if we go back to basic, if we go back to foundation, we're going to start seeing why we are unable to celebrate life to the fullest, why we are not living a happy life. Cancer is about happiness. But this is a sextile, this is a soft aspect. It's not like a harsh Pluto-Venus opposition. So what I'm trying to say here is that it just gives you the opportunity to do that. It doesn't come naturally. You're going to have to make certain steps to be able to. It's kind of like you are getting stung by a bee. You're going to go to the pharmacy and then you're going to get this soothing balm and then you're going to be rub it on your arm. Now that's exactly how this Sun and Chiron sextile actually acts. If you don't apply that soothing balm, then the pain is going to last a lot longer. So that's the weekly energy pattern. It's not necessarily the busiest week of the year, surely, because even considering the asteroids involved, you can see that we only have got basically 4 major aspects happening. But I am wondering if anyone has got any questions for me about the week energy. Also, I would like to mention that you always have to be looking at, so which aspect is going to be affecting you the most? Often I get this question. The most important aspect of the week for you is always the one that triggers your natal chart. So for example, if you have got a planet on 0 degree of Cancer, then the Chiron sextile to the sun is going to be the most important aspect of the week. If you have got a planet on 5 degree of the fixed signs, such as Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, or Taurus, then the most important aspect for you is going to be the Venus and Pluto opposition. So this is the way how you can determine which aspect to listen to, which aspect is going to affect you the most. So that's a little bit of a practical tip for your chart analysis. So guys, if you don't have any question, then it was great to see you. I'm going to be posting the weekly breakdowns for each sign. Those are not going to be live, but I'm going to be posting them in the evening. According to Hungary time / tomorrow morning. I don't want to be bombarding YouTube with 12 videos at the same time. So usually I give a 1-hour window for each sign. And you will be able to hear a good 10-minute breakdown for each of your rising sign. Thank you very much for being here. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my important updates. And also that allows me to grow the channel as well. And I tend to be very generous with these videos because I'm trying to give you as much knowledge as possible. So thank you everyone and have a blessed weekend. Take care. Bye for now.